Alright, so we'll get started with the Q&A first. One question I had in the premium group was, how do I do my top-down analysis going into the day? What's my thought process? What's my things that I'm looking for, and how do I know how to form my bias for the day? So let's look at today's price action to kind of see how you could run through a daily candle, and how once you reach an area of invalidation to be able to switch your bias intraday. So we'll kind of run through that on NQ today. But first off, I like to start on the higher time frame. Always higher time frame, right? So let's go back and we'll take today's candle off. Okay, so we see the close of Wednesday, right? So whether I'm halfway through the day, whatever I'm at, I am looking at how did Wednesday close in comparison to the previous day, right? That's what you should always be looking at. And right off the bat, what do you see? We took the previous day high and we've closed above. So that's showing more than likely we're going to want to continue. And what's our low-hanging fruit? Our draw is previous day high, right? So I'm just going to mark that out on the chart. We'll do the same for YM. Wednesday's candle closed over Tuesday's. What else did it also do? It also inversed this gap. So I'm going to mark that out. So now I have two confluences on this day showing that likely our highs here will get taken, and they're relative equal highs too. So we'll go ahead and mark both of those out. That's a potential draw. We'll look at ES as well, and same thing. We've closed over the previous day, showing that we want to continue this price action, right? So what's my easiest draw for the day? Previous day high. So we'll mark that out. Once I do that, now I'm dropping to my lower time frames to see, well, what's happened overnight between Asia and London. Have we formed a daily cycle at any point by the time we get to the New York Open? And then I'll know more or less which direction I'm going to be trading at the open, or what I at least expect to happen at the open. So before we do that, let's quickly look at our hourly chart, which is going to show us the cycle for the week. Now, right off the bat, what do we notice about our week? We have a weekly sequential SMT between Monday and Friday. It's already been closed over, it's been confirmed, we're already moving away, showing that we're pretty bullish, right? Another thing that I need to note is that already, for NQ at least, we've reached 2 to 2.5 standard deviations on the defining range, right? The last 2/3 of quarter one. So already I have to be cautious here, right? Because this could be an area where we see the retracement happen for the week, right? So I'm going to leave that marked on my chart. We haven't quite reached that here on ES. And for YM, again, we have these equal highs, and 2 to 2.5 is up there. So I still have room to trade higher on YM and ES, right? Okay, so I'm going to pop ES up on the screen now. We're going to fast forward in time till we get to the New York AM session. This is usually where I screw up in replay mode, so bear with me here. I'll do it by a few candles here. And almost did it again. Okay, so 6 a.m. Why did I stop at 6 a.m.? That's the beginning of the New York AM daily cycle, right? If you split the day, 24 hours, into 4 equal periods, 6 hours each. That's why a lot of people talk about the 6-hour candle. So I'm going to drop to my 15-minute chart, which is going to show me, right, I'm basically profiling each of those 6-hour candles, which is represented here. So this would be your first one, this dotted line. These smaller dots would indicate this is Asia, this is London, now we're into New York here. Okay. So right off the bat, what do we notice? Well, we notice we've already traded above previous day high, traded above previous day high here. And YM also traded above previous day high, right? So does that mean your bias is invalidated? Not necessarily. What you want to look for is, was there a sequential SMT here anywhere? Yes, there is, right here. Now, for me in my model, I would have preferred if this sequential SMT either happened in London or further down here to be able to manipulate the defining range, but if it doesn't, that's okay. You can still catch a trade. Just know that for me, this means that this trade is lower probability. Not only that, this is also Thursday before NFP, which typically leaves highs and lows for resting liquidity for NFP move tomorrow, right? So just something to be cautious about. That's why I didn't really trade today. So, but anyways, you have a sequential SMT here with NQ being stronger. Okay, so I'm going to mark that out on my chart. It's this down close candle right here, this first one that I believe did it. Let's look at ES here. Yes, this first candle passed through the low here on ES, so it's the first candle in all three assets. So we'll just go ahead and mark that out. There's that right there. And we'll do the same to YM. Very first candle is actually a bullish candle, so I have to take the candle to the left of it, the first bearish candle to the left. So that would be here. So now for me, what I'm watching for is, number one, the stronger asset in the bullish market to confirm, and then my middle asset to confirm. I prefer that. Doesn't always have to be the case, but I do prefer if the middle asset is siding with the other asset that I want to trade. That just helps to indicate you are on the correct side for your trade. In this case, we've confirmed here on ES. We've also confirmed here on NQ. So even from 645 candle, you could have been in this trade. How far would you target? At least to this quarter's high, the London highs, or 2 to 2.5, right? If there's a draw here that lines up. But when we're at all-time highs, it's just best to go ahead and take your trade off where there is resting liquidity here, right? Not only that, these highs are fairly equal as well. Now, if I go over to YM, we failed to confirm so far. So that's something I'll be watching for because it's weak right now. So I'll be watching as we get closer to the New York Open. What is YM doing? Is it possible that I can refine this here to a 5-minute entry? Or is it more likely I just need to take the daily cycle, TCISD, and long that? That way I have a little bit wider stop. Give it some breathing room. So we're going to fast forward again to just before 9 a.m. So we'll make our assessment there, which is going to be here. Okay, so now it's 8:45. I'm going to drop down now to my 90-minute cycle so I can see what are the candles doing, what do they look like, am I close to getting a 90-minute cycle, or is my daily cycle here going to be the play? So right now, if I measure off, we are at 8:55. So quarter 3 is going to start in just 5 minutes. So at this point I'm marking off. Okay, we are about 60 points away from this low. On which asset is this? YM. We are about 130, and this will be my quarter low right here for Q2. 68 points, not too far. And then on ES, we're continuing to run higher. So we're about 12 points away. So to me, this would show we're already starting to expand away. So I would expect the open maybe to give us one last tag, but more than likely this daily cycle would be safe. If I drop down to here, if 9 a.m., post 9 a.m. offers an entry, I would take that there. Just targeting this quarter's high, right? Now the next thing I want to do is, just because I have a sequential SMT doesn't mean I just blindly take that. Just like I did on the daily candle, and I'm profiling these candles, I want to see how did these candles close so that I can get a better assessment of if this candle here is framed and likely to expand. So now I'm going to look at my 90-minute cycle. Sorry, my computer's running somewhat slow right now. Okay. So based on that, what I'm looking for now is some sort of other cracking correlation to show that this is likely to expand at the open. And let's look at YM here. And right off the bat, what do you notice here? Bullish candle, bearish candle. But what did that bearish candle do? Bearish candle, just like on our daily chart, right? We look at the closures, swept the low, closed back in the range, right? So this is already telling me that this is going to take this high. Minimum, it will take this high. So now that becomes my draw. London high, right? So if that's the case, then likely I want to enter somewhere near, right, candle 2, the opening price of candle 2, right? So just like you look at the fractal model, quarterly theory is just breaking it down by time for you, right? It's very similar. GXT, very similar, right? They're all basing their model off of time. Profiling candles based on time, so it all stems from quarterly theory. So now that I know this TCISD is likely to hold, let me look at ES over here real quick again. Yeah, so we now have a nice move back into the range, took the low, moved back into the range, expanding away. Hate that part about this. There we go. And now this candle, so why didn't I long on this candle, right? Well, for one, took the low, but it didn't close, or didn't close above the low, right? So it's not ready yet. Now this one took the low and it's closed above, right? So now it's showing it's going to expand, right? So now I'm looking at YM. Why am I looking at YM? Because on the higher time frame, right? If we go back out to that 15-minute, the daily cycle, on the higher time frame, it's the one holding, right? So this is the one I want to long. Not only that, this is the cycle I'm going to take, right? So I want the asset, I want to long the stronger asset, right? Like this one. So we'll put a long here. Stop will go at the sequential SMT low. Simply targeting that high. It's about 2 to 2.5 R. Now, I know a lot of people will say, well, YM looks a lot stronger. It's put in this fair value gap here, right? But remember, initially it was weaker, right? So at the open, you know, you have these relative equal lows. It could just easily come back down and grab. How am I going to know which one's stronger? I'm going to be watching the 5-minute time frame. As we get closer and closer and closer to the 9:30 open, I'll know which one's stronger, which one's weaker, right? Just by which one's getting closer to the Q2 90-minute low. So if I look at this cycle right now, right, here's quarter 1 on the 90-minute cycle. Quarter 2 will start right, or quarter 3 will start right here. So my low will be way down here. And my low is right there. So which one's actually closer to their low? Well, let's play one more candle forward. Which one's closer? YM. Right? So that's showing me right now YM just turned pretty weak. So if we back out to 15-minute time frame, We're respecting over here. We just made a massive leap downwards, right? Next candle in. See how we just tagged the TCISD? You'd be in right here because I would trade this post 9 a.m. So this would tag us in right here. And over here, we're still moving bearish, right? Not only that, but note again, if we fractalize it, what was the candle closure, right? Let me back this off for just a little bit. We took that low, right? And we closed back above. We took this candle's low and closed below, showing that YM still wants to dig deeper. And right now, YM is only 20 points away from creating another sequential SMT here, right? So I don't want to long YM yet. I want to finish this bearish move it's got going on. I also believe there's a microcycle up here showing that this one was going to be the one moving lower. So actually we could just check real quick. Yeah, right here. Weaker, stronger, creating the high. Lower high, showing it wants to go lower. Okay? So we would be entered into the trade here. So let's just go ahead and throw on, was it 37.5 micros? Would be what? 75. So we've got 3 micros. Probably most people would take if you're trading a 50K account. Alright, stop loss goes here. Take profit goes there. Okay. So we've already looked at our candle closures, right, to confirm NQ's going higher. One other candle closure we could look at is the 6 hour as well, right? Is this ready to expand? All right, so we have a bearish PSP over here, right? Bearish candle, bullish candle. But see how we've closed above? So what does that tell me? That more than likely this candle here will want to take this candle's high before it flips bearish. Does that make sense? Come on, mouse. There we go. This candle here, the 12 a.m. candle, London session, took the Asia high, closed above it. More than likely this candle will continue to here. This candle, however, took the Asia high and closed back in the range. So showing this candle is more bearish, or this asset's more bearish. Even though it's printing bullish right now, right? It's just putting in its open, high, low close. So I'll tell you now that we'll switch bias intraday after this high is taken, right? You can already kind of see that forming. If you look at ES, what does it show us? Taking the high, closed above, showing likely it wants to move higher, right? So then this is the asset I want to trade. This one should be your strongest. ES will be in the middle, and YM clearly weaker, right? So we'll play out the open, which will be this next couple of candles here. Actually, let me switch the 5 minute. This is where you'd start to get a little nervous right after we expand a little bit, right? But now remember, where are we at here? 9:15. I'm going to get right to 9:25. Okay, so let's stop right here for a second. Because right here we have another 90-minute sequential SMT that's formed, right? If you look at YM, it swept the high and immediately confirmed bearish. NASDAQ also swept the high, but failed to confirm bearish, right? It's closed above that. So showing that it's not really moving lower if it's going to close above the candle that swept the liquidity, right? If it was truly bearish, it would have closed similar to this, right? So it's showing me that this has a willingness to go higher, but already YM is starting to turn bearish. So likely we're going to get a decoupled move here at the open. checking ES, you can already see that move starting to play out on ES, right? Now ideally I would like ES to follow suit with NQ, but this just tells me I'm going to get slow delivery if ES is siding with YM. So basically NQ is kind of like the standalone for now. So as we play out, again you'll see we have a closure above, indicating that this sequential SMT is likely to fail here. We got closure below, so this one should hold. We've even put in a gap, so we are likely to move lower here. We're likely to continue moving lower here. Okay, so we know this London high is going to go before NQ starts to turn around, right? It's pretty obvious. Now this is probably where you're thinking, I'm on the wrong side. Everything over here is moving very bearish. And now NQ is starting to turn. So maybe you went break even here, maybe you just got out, whatever it might be. But more than likely this might have scared you out. But when I trade, if this sequential SMT appears that's counter to my bias, before my draw is hit, I'll ignore it. If I take a loss, I take a loss. That's just part of trading. But you can't let candles like this scare you out of your position just because the other assets are starting to move bearish, right? I've stuck with my idea. The daily candles show me that we want to continue. The 6-hour profile shows me I want to continue. I've now got a 90-minute bullish sequential SMT, right? It's all showing me that this wants to continue. If you stick to your guns, even though you come into heavy drawdown here, it still respects this 90-minute. Now if it had closed below here, that'd be a different story, right? Because now I know, now likely that if this drops below the 90-minute low over here, then likely this fails. But it's held that. Next candle continues to push higher, right? Till eventually we hit our draw. Okay, now once we hit our draw, now I'll be watching for any other sequential SMT to form that would take us lower, right? So if we've hit London highs over here and ES has failed to do so, right? So if we drop over to the daily cycle, now that's showing me that we want to possibly go lower, but I would need some closure below this candle to indicate that. Actually, see YM did it on this candle, so you'd be looking here, but minimum I want to see some closure below here. All right, we continue to extend. Where did we extend to? No surprise there, 2 to 2.5, right? Now we're in an area that will likely see retracement. Drop over to your 5-minute, 90-minute cycle. We've extended past 2 to 2.5 now, and we're close to 4. So showing that this is probably the max amount of move we're going to make, right? There we go. Okay, so now, once we enter quarter 4, right? Remember we made that daily cycle. So now, if I get an opposing cycle that's on the same cycle that I'm trading, right? So I was trading the daily cycle, I wasn't trading the 90-minute, right? So now I'm starting to watch. Okay, I've got a daily cycle here. If I'm still holding runners, now I'm starting to watch for, this is the area where I'm going to reverse, right? I'm going to go ahead and erase this here. So now I'm watching the 90-minute cycle. What happens up here in an area where I can expect retracement? Sequential SMT. Why is this one important? Well, remember, if in quarter 3 right? So here is Q1. Let's see, Q2. To 12 o'clock. If within Q3 I drop back out, and in quarter 3, right, I have a sequential SMT, which one put in the high? YM. Remember, YM also put in a daily cycle when 1, 2, 3. So what will I be watching for after this forms? Another stacked cycle, right? So if I drop to my microcycle, let me do this here. It's not selecting. So let me select it. There we go. Q3. So all I'm waiting for now is somewhere in here, right, Q3, to form another sequential SMT on the micro. If it does, that's very high probability. So I'm just going to play this out till we get to it. Just coming up here. And what do we get? Actually here somewhere. We have a micro hidden. Where's this is the last closure here. So basically this would be your high, right? Formed in when? Q3. So when you see that happen, and then you get this closure below, right here, now you can short it, right? And look how tight your stop becomes, 12 points. And you can probably target all these equal lows right here, right? All the way down to there. About a nice fat 14R. So that's the power of stacked cycles. If you can learn to read them as they're happening live, which is not the easiest thing to do, because what you'll see is that I'm actually already past quarter 3. But where was the high put in? Quarter 3, right? There was a hidden cycle here. Let's see, which one actually did it? ES. Yeah, I see. So play that on through, and there you go, all the way down. So what's actually happening here is they're trying to alternate those highs and lows between the different assets. So you don't notice that that's even what's happening. But this is how you actually time your expansion. And look how clear it becomes. Very clear after the fact, you'll see it, but harder to determine in the middle of it what's actually going on. But that's how you use stacked cycles. Now, a lot of times this won't be a hidden sequential SMT. It'll actually be a sequential SMT. And I think actually NQ probably popped above that, but the micro didn't. I think that's probably what it was. Yeah, right there. I was wondering why I couldn't see it, but that's why, right there. Very, very small. Right there. So if you're able to catch that live, right? So even though the sequential SMT is quarter 4, sweeping out quarter 3's high, the high was still made in 3. So on the other assets, right, your high remained intact in quarter 3. Quarter 3 high. And even then, you could have shorted this one. You could short this one. Doesn't matter. That's how you stack the cycles. So it was in quarter 3 of the daily cycle. After quarter 3 of the 90-minute cycle, created a sequential SMT, right? Here. And then in quarter 3 of the microcycle here. So that's how you use those stacked cycles, or lethality calls them chained sequences, right? So that's kind of my top-down approach, how I'm looking at the market based on candle closures to get my bias early on, looking at what happens intraday if my bias needs to change after my draw is met, and just determining whether price is likely to continue or reverse based on how the other markets compare. Any questions on that? I know it's a lot to digest, but hopefully that makes sense for everybody. But if you can learn to read how these time cycles go together, you can be very, very effective in your trading and get some really sniper entries like this. Doesn't mean you have to hold this for 14R, right? But equal lows are just such a good target. You could just hold this down to this low, and that would have been 5R. That's a great day, right? Alright, so we'll just erase that. Let's see, what else can we do here? I think it's already almost been 45 minutes. That's crazy. Okay. Let me double check here. See if there's any other questions. Just making sure I don't miss any DM'd me as well. Okay, I don't think so. Okay. All right. Talk about the importance of standard deviation. Sure. So something that I'm currently evaluating myself, and I've not seen this anywhere else publicly either, is stacked standard deviations. That's what I like to call it. So it's kind of how price is interacting based on prior time cycles and the current time cycle. So you saw me kind of do an example of that, right, on the 90-minute here. If we come back over to this, right, where did this retrace at? The previous 2 to 2.5 cycle, right? So it finally reached this draw here, which was in this 90-minute cycle, 2 to 2.5, and it retraced there. So an example of stacked cycles, or stacked standard deviations. But my model specifically generally trades either Q2 or Q3. Why do I choose to trade as an example, Q3 in the New York AM session? Well, because it's Q3 inside of Q3, right? So already, if I get a sequential SMT here, right, and then I had a daily cycle to confirm it, right, what's likely to happen? So we already know here, if we back this up just a little bit, right, we had our daily cycle confirmed when? Quarter 3. If, oops, let me do that. So if I get another 90-minute cycle, right, here in quarter 3, what does that mean? Well, which one set in this low? Quarter 3. Now, I use the standard deviations. Where did this occur at, right? It dipped below the defining range. Below the defining range here. So this is your accumulation. Typically in quarter 1, you manipulated, right, the 0 to 1.5. You manipulate it here in this zone, expand away, expand away. So let's see, it's actually YM that did it first. Here, 935. So once we have a closure above this candle, right, then I can trade away. Put in a gap even. So good confluence here. But it was quarter 3 already stacked with quarter 3. So even higher probability that this would hold, right? That's why I stuck and said stick with this today. If you look at when was the low put in again, what can you already tell? Ain't that something? Q3, Q3, what do you know? Q3. So it's just helping you to narrow down when should you see the actual move, when was the end of it, right? And not only that, here, right? What's your standard deviations look like? Right? So I manipulated almost down to 1.5, right? I don't really use the defining range too much on the microcycle, but it works there even still. But if you look at the 90-minute cycle, the importance of the standard deviations tell you where price can reach to. If those standard deviations line up with liquidity, it makes that a very high probability target. For example, let's look at YM, right? If I come back to the daily cycle and I look at what happened with the defining range, right? Where did this manipulation occur? Right? This is my model again, just in YM, going the opposite direction. It occurred at the 0 to 1.5. Right? So as soon as we close below this, could be short here, right? Because this is where we put in the manipulation. This is higher probability, right? We move down. Where's our target? At least right in here. 2 to 2.5. What lines up with this? Well, let's look at our daily cycle or our 6-hour candles. What's sitting there? Fair value gap. So higher probability that now we're going to reach and extend to this level. Smack dab in the middle of this range is this 6-hour low. There's your draw. Doesn't mean it's going to stop right there, right? But that's an easy draw to aim for, right? It helps you to see where your draw is. And actually, where did this end out for the day? Pretty much took that and just stalled out right there inside the gap. So there you go. So now we've got a weekly cycle formed here, and we're already trading away. So no surprise there. Inside of a daily gap too, so that's really nice to see. And so if you were looking at today, for example, right, we took the high, closed inside, took the high, closed inside. It's likely that we go to this internal range after taking the external. Now that we've hit that here, now we can expand away, targeting this high. Now obviously NFP overnight could do a lot of different things, so I wouldn't really touch this. I'll just see how NFP plays out, trade on Monday, but it's kind of how you're getting your bias real quick going into tomorrow. Likely this high gets taken tomorrow. Alright, I think that takes up our whole hour, so kind of a little bit of a back test there and reviewing the day. Fortunately, I do have to cut it out here at about 1 hour mark, but appreciate you guys joining in for that. Any other last second questions? If not, go check out my Twitter page as well. I'm doing a free giveaway on there, so I'll drop the link to that post here. Just follow me, follow the steps in the post, and you'll be entered to win 1 month of free premium access with me. So let me just copy this here so you guys can go and enter that as well. Nice little giveaway drawing that will be on this Saturday. So alright guys, we'll go ahead and call it there. Appreciate it. Probably next week then we'll do a little bit more of some back testing and reviewing price action more so than the Q&A side of things. So stay tuned for that next week on Thursday, I believe. I've got it posted in the calendar, but next week on Thursday, yeah, 5:30 Eastern time. So see everybody then. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Catch you guys next time.
Okay.